Morning, guys. It's 5:21 in the morning. Still Sunday, the 1st of May, 2024. Your zombie out here, we were John C. Roseman, California, who's getting his fill of coffee right now. We're talking about geology. We're talking about other things happening in the world, general stuff. But then back to geology and Rancho, Palos Verdes maybe sliding up into the waters. My own prediction on the damn thing, but then again, let's not quote me on that one. I'm also concerned about the geology of the area that I live in. And now I was talking about once we had potential moisture locked into the hillsides and oversaturating them, there'll be slides happening that won't be affecting me, right? Wrong. Okay, so as I told people before on the previous video, please go to your Google Maps, or if you got MapQuest, but I prefer Google Maps myself. Type out Antelope Valley, California, and then you see the wedge. Now, in the wedge, you have passages going to and from. When we actually have fires, it affects everything in the area because we don't know whether or not there's going to be escape routes or not for the people in the communities, or let alone people in the Antelope Valley trying to get in and out of the area. When one route gets fouled up with fire, smoke, and damage happening all around, it's the rerouting of traffic that gets nuts out there. When we get snow and it's starting to block up passages, now we know the other passages are going to get nailed too, because the California Highway Patrol and Caltrans shuts things down, mostly the Highway Patrol, for passenger safety, so nothing comes in and out of the Central Valley. But people trying to get the hell out of here are going to have to go back east. Now, I said stuff about geology at this point, and I'm talking about meteorology a little bit here, because the two go hand in hand, even though they both affect each other one way or another. Except when I keep hearing about the earthquake weather crap. Now, I'm not a geologist, but I've been trying to get smatterings left and right throughout my 58 years of living in this planet. I never could quite figure out what the hell they're talking about earthquake weather, because we had adverse weather conditions happening, or mild conditions happening, when the Earth just decides to shift one way or another, go over each other, or build things up. And it's not weather. Unless, of course, we're going to be talking about oversaturation in the rock layers, because of moisture being built up in there and having no way to drain out. So we would have slide movements on the hillsides. My situation of living in Roseman, California, small community out in Antelope Valley. I call it the armpit. We're next to an air base here, and looking at it just from a satellite picture, you'd think we wouldn't have any kind of issues with it, right? I switched to a terrain map, looking at it through Google Maps. I still don't show any problems that we're going to be having, except if we get flooded streets somehow. Now, if we get flooded streets, it means the elevation is bringing the water from one location down to ours through the streets. But every time we've had rain happening out here, I hadn't seen that this much. But in other areas of the Antelope Valley, where it's standing area, where it's standing flat, and the water has no other place to go except build itself up and flood every streets. And out here in a desert region, they do that. Unless, of course, we got sewage systems already working, trying to divert all that water. But it's a wide area. There's no way to control that kind of flooding. What worries me is if the people are trying to get in and out just by on the west side of the valley, not the east side of it. The east side, they're going to be worried about mudslides, potential getting cars stuck or flooded out. So they would have to go through the mountain ranges. And the mountain ranges is usually what scares me because the passages that people go through, they're hoping and praying that they don't get clogged up or flooded out or even having rock slides or mudslides to trap them. If I happen to take you to the terrain map and I happen to show you the major routes that we have on the south, going southwest, from Palmdale into the mountain ranges, would go into Lakeview, and we would go into Acton, and then Mission, and then Agua Dulce, Forest Park, Santa Clarita, Valencia. But it's mountainous regions that we have, and they are susceptible to sliding. Beautiful landscapes to look at, but also depending upon conditions that happen. I mean, if there's forest fires, it takes out the water. It takes out plants that hold the water into the ground, so they don't get super saturated. But you take out the plants, and then you got super saturated grounds. That's where you have the slides and potential sinkholes. But only if you have enough dissolvable minerals in there to create that kind of action. That terrifies me more. Going up north in the desert to the area of Antelope Acres and Neenach, and then going through the mountainsides. It's highway, what is this one, 58? 138, or Avenue D as they called it, stretching from Sierra Highway all the way through just to get into the connection of the 5. That's one of the major hub routes that we have for transport. Trucks use that all the time, cutting across. If they have to do a circumnavigation on this one, they're going to be out of luck. Well, maybe not. They're going to be jamming up like crazy, and it's going to eat up a lot of fuel and stuff. We're going to have to get through the grapevine to get into the Central Valley. Now, why am I saying all this stuff? Because I have to keep myself alerted. I have to keep myself alerted to it. We live in a geologic active planet. No matter where the hell we live, what are we doing is still active one way or another. So we will have our quakes, we will have our slides, we will have our landscape deformations that scare the hell out of people and push people into the water. And some people think I'm kidding at this point. When I started hearing more about the slides happening out in Rancho, Palos Verdes, and I kept looking at the damn landscape, I'm thinking, it's only a matter of time. They've got water grooves all over the place, but are they regulating it to a portion? And are they trying to allow the water to drain out into the ocean instead of being absorbed into the ground all the time? I mean, yeah, well water is fine. Filtrations to the rocks. Certain processes happen in the ground where you get groundwater and you're actually able to get it filtered to a point, but you still have to get it filtered also chemically. Carbon filters work. I use Brita a lot. I do. I don't have it hooked up to a faucet. I just have a small one in my refrigerator I use all the time. It works. And all the reports I keep hearing about sliding from the mountainsides and the hillsides, a lot of weight groundwater and soil make. And it scares me that a community is going to be facing that challenge of leaving, and they may or may not be able to come back. They want to stay until the last second, And then after that, I don't know what happens. But once the ground starts moving rapidly, they're dead. I suspected when they turned off the gas, they weren't going to be coming back with the gas. And when they started turning off the electricity, it's getting to that point where they're going to be doing an evac on this one. And we're well over between 100 and 200 residents live in the area. First responders were telling the people in the area they may not have access enough or fast enough access to get into certain areas if the ground becomes more and more deformed. And it still scares me looking at this stuff. I'm not in the area. I'm out in the Antelope Valley. I'm in Roseman. Let me talk to you about Roseman again. Oh, shake your head on that one, why don't you? So back to the Google Maps. I'm going to switch back over to layers. You see kind of a sparse community we have out here. Very sparse. We have tracks in areas that we actually have housing communities. But when it comes down for an emergency situation, most of our supplies that we're going to be getting is on the west side of the freeway, and not enough of it on the east side of the freeway. What scares me is a potential collapse of the freeway. Disaster plans go through my head all the damn time. It scares even me when I start talking about it. A therapist is going to have a field day with me on it. Let her have it. I want you to go back over to Roseman if you can, Roseman, California, and look at it on the 14 freeway. Look at the topography we've got, but also look at the how the community is structured. Now, if we get into a situation, the only supermarket we've got, a major one, is Albertsons. That's it. We don't have another competitor in the area. We just only have the one. And that is going to be drained dry real damn fast. Because notice the community, the density of the community on the west side of the 14 freeway next to the east side. Almost balanced, right? Except if I look at the rest of the community, most of them are squeezed tight. Excuse me. They're squeezed tight to the far end of our community, to the town. We have solar panel farms all over the place, trying to gather as much energy. But we have a lot of people crammed on both sides. The freeway system that we only have two routes that actually have overpasses. We have the one on Sierra Highway, which goes north to south, and actually it goes east to west from Edwards Air Force Base all the way to nearly the far end. And we have one major hump on that one. The overpass on that one. The main drag. We have a minor drag, a minor hump, 2 miles down, 2.5 miles down, I think. No, about 3 miles down. We get to Avenue A. It's a distance, 3 to 5 mile distance. We're talking about 35 miles of speed. And we have a freeway that the overpasses go over. For Avenue A, we have both on and off. Should we have a collapse? Should we have a major shaker or some other catastrophe happening? There's no way in that section, people are going to be able to get across unless they're going to be going across barriers just to get to one side to another side. If they got 4x4s or trucks like that, they could. And the other major highway that we have is Sierra Highway on the east side of the freeway. And I think I already said this many times. We've got 30S, but it'll go into the desert regions enough. So maybe you get to Avenue B. And there's only an overpass, but there's no way to get to the freeway. And 30S will go all the way down to C. Again, there's an overpass, but there's no way to get to it. So the road, if it hadn't been screwed up enough, it's still a passable road for the 30th. Goes all the way over to Avenue D. And Avenue D is where you have access to get to and from the freeway at that point. So Avenue 30 would have been, the road hadn't been buckled or anything else like that, would be a passable way for people to get through if they could. And then there's, where the hell is this other side road? 35th Street. Rough terrain, but still, I said, somewhat usable. It goes through a lot of desert traveling. Not very well paved, but it's still accessible. So I guess they're later to smaller. It's a smaller road, but it's a fire access road. That does hit into Roseman Boulevard. Actually, hits Avenue B. Going still north, it'll hit into. Well, actually, fade into obscurity during that time. It's an off and on kind of situation here because we don't have that much active roads. It's old dirt roads, and if you had a 4x4, that's one thing. But to get from point A to point B in this place, you need to have paved roads or maintained roads. And that's the thing about it, isn't it? Having it maintained. I talked about this a few times. Let's see, 40th. If I had a car, this would have been this one would have been something to drive on, I'll tell you that much. All the way over to Avenue A. Okay, good. And then we got to go through past Avenue A until we head up to Roseman Boulevard. Until we get into communities. That follows the actual paved road. Once you get into Holiday Avenue on the north, then they have a paved road of 40th. Side road will, what? This is not what I wanted in the first place. Thank you. Get me off here. Thank you very much. But once you're on the 40th Street and heading northbound, the actual concrete, you actually get into Roseman Boulevard. and this is on the west side. Said before, there's very few places that are actually going to have substance in case we get into an emergency situation. Why I'm saying about this one here. Because after living through two major earthquakes and a few minor ones throughout my lifetime, I'd have to be prepared and paranoid these days. Every time I'm using up the gallon jugs of milk, washing them out, filling them up, having them stored just in case. Short time ago, I think last month or earlier than that, we actually had a company going to be doing repair work on some pipes. And I don't know how long it was going to take. 3 or 4 hours. Okay, no problem. But if it was going to be an all-day situation, then what? Got me thinking, got me paranoid, and I had to be prepared on that one. Which meant I had to check on everything else I was going to be able to use for grub and any water for my dog she was going to be needing. But me for using flushing water or cooking water or drinking water. That's why I had the idea of keeping all those containers full. Because if we happen to do run into a situation, at least want to have some water with me just in case. Just in case. And water is essential. Water is essential for our survival. We depend heavily on it for our drinking purposes, our flushing purposes, our life-sustaining purposes. We also depend upon power. We depend upon the power that runs a lot of things in our lives. Computer access, communications right now. Certain plants out there use power to actually keep the water pressures going, and sewage. Especially when I was hearing about Rancho's Palos Verdes, depending upon electricity out there. Once the electricity is shut off, then their access to water is denied. Their access to flushing and sewage removal is denied. If it's the same out here, then we're screwed. So many things to be thinking about and be paranoid about, but I lived in a time in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We grew up under nuclear fear, and then we lived under earthquake fear. But there's always been earthquakes, even before I was born. But not to the point where we're totally paranoid about things because we realize how dangerous earthquakes get. We'd seen communities being swallowed up by collapsing buildings and sinkholes and shaken apart left and right. Freeway collapses. People going crazy over the food distributing. Scares the hell out of me. Say you can't live in fear. No, you can't live in fear. But you can be prepared for whatever, to a point, whatever happens. Can't be absolutely paranoid about it, but just be aware and alert. That's the hardest damn thing for us to do, and be is aware and alert, because these things, if we're not on top of it, it's going to be on top of us, and then we're really in a mess. That being said, boys and girls, is it time for me to go to bed yet? Oh my God, it's getting light out there, isn't it? I'm turning out to be a vampire. Not blood sucking, but just sleeping during the daytime, and at nighttime Sleep? What's that? Till next time, fellow zombies.